how do you determine the right amount of carbohydrates to eat per unit of insulin, especially considering there's so many different insulins? I'm going to tell you after this.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation. This is your forum to ask Dave whatever's on your mind. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. What is the ratio of carbs to insulin per IU?
You know, it seems like a very simple question that requires a simple answer, but it's not so simple because there are different types of insulin. We have the fast-acting insulins and the longer duration insulins. With the longer duration insulins, you know, like I seem to recommend lately with people who have high fasting blood sugars, like Hgh, Tresiba, Novulin, N, Lantus, you really don't have to worry about the carbs you're eating because it works in the backdrop, so to speak. It works behind the scenes. You know, usually I recommend taking the shot with a meal just because sometimes you get a little bit of a peak right after you take it. But after that, it's pretty straight. And you don't have to worry about, you know, carbs. With the fast-acting insulin, that's when you have to determine how many grams of carbs you should eat per IU. Now, with the very fast-actings like the Novolog or Humalog, which are rapid-acting, they basically unload everything all at once. It's 10 grams of carbs per 1 IU. So if you take 10 IUs of Novolog, you have to eat 100 grams of carbs. And that's pretty much the way it goes. Now, there's a fudge factor in there because some protein that you eat always gets converted to carbs, and so that can compensate a little bit. But by and far, we say 10 grams of carbs per 1 IU of rapid-acting insulin. A Hgh, which is super fast-acting, is the same way. So it's all 10 grams of carbs per 1 IU. Now, when you get into the Novulin R or the Humulin R, they're rapid acting, but they don't unload everything all at once. They kind of have two peaks. They unload half initially and then half in 2 hours. With those, it's half as much. So if you take 10 IUs of Novulin R, you're going to take in 50 grams of carbs with the first meal, and then 2 hours later with a meal, you're going to take another 50 grams of carbs. And so you split it in half because it kind of has two peaks, and it releases half up front and then half in 2 hours. So I tend to like those insulins better, and they're available at Walmart without a prescription, Novulin R. Thank Donald Trump for that. And they're pretty cheap, those bottles, $25 or something like that. So, but they're good because they cover 2 meals. So if you want to eat 100 grams of carbs per meal, then you just take, you take 20 IUs of it. But, I think 10 IUs, in the morning, and then you get 2 meals covered, and then you can do it again if you wanted to. I mean, would be adequate. That's what I used to do back in the day before we knew about long-acting insulins. To me, long-acting insulin's better, but because you don't have to really calculate carbs, but, people have different, strategies for what they're trying to achieve.
Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. How long can you safely stay on high levels of test? By high levels, he means 500 and up.
500 is like just beyond hormone replacement. So you got 200 is hormone replacement. You're a little bit more. There's really no toxicity to taking 500 milligrams of testosterone a week. There's maybe some receptor downgrade over time. But I know guys that stay on it all the time, and that's just what they want. But what's going to happen is you're going to stagnate. So you're not going to make gains. And that's not most people's, desire is to make gains. As long as your blood pressure is not going up too high, because sometimes when you have a little testosterone, extra testosterone on board, you hold fluid, and then fluid can increase blood pressure. If your blood pressure is controlled, there's no reason really that you can't stay on 500, for very long periods of time, even year round if you wanted to. I don't recommend it, because if you're going to do HRT, stay at 200. You know what I mean? If you're going to do a cycle, go up and do more, but do it for, cycling time periods, meaning, if you want to do 3, 4, 5 months in a row and then cut back, that's the better way to do it. So this way you can, give the androgen receptors a chance to recover a little bit. And I think that that's just better. But I do know people who contact me, like the older, like guys like in their 50s. They're like, can I just stay on 500 milligrams? I'm like, I mean, I guess you could if as long as your blood pressure is good and your prostate is fine and your DHT and estrogen levels are controlled. I said, yeah. I mean, there's no negative to it in terms of toxicity. And if you feel good in the gym and it helps you with the injuries, I don't think I have a problem with it. But don't expect to be making, consistent gains on that. At some point, you're going to plateau, and you're going to just be, status quo, so to speak. On, you might call it high HRT levels. I'm calling it low cycle levels. And good questions, though. Both of these questions are great. They're both from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's an app I offer. You can download it, on your Android phone or your iTunes for your iPhone. It's $29 a month. You get me as your coach in your back pocket. You have access to all my writings, all my videos I do. I answer everyone's questions for the app members in an open forum. So you see everyone's questions and answers. I do a Q&A video every week for the app, so you get an extra Ask Dave. You have all access to all my cycles, all my diets, the keto diet, cyclical keto diet, off season. It's really a great resource, and it's constantly evolving. We're constantly putting new information on there. So it's like a way to constantly keep up with what the latest and greatest that's going on in the industry is, peptides and all that stuff. And once again, if you're interested in learning and constantly expanding your education, this is a great app. You guys have been supporting it for years. I can't thank you enough. A lot of people say to me, Dave, you answer all our questions for free. What can I do to support you? This is it. I mean, this is, it's a small amount of money every month. I appreciate it. It adds up. It pays some of my bills, and it makes it, makes me want to continue doing information like this. So thank you very much.
Before we go to the rest of our questions, we don't have necessarily a special of the week, but again, our friends at Titan Medical Centers, for all that they do in supporting this channel and supporting everything that it is that we do, especially on this show, we do like to highlight their services, their products. Again, Dave mentioned the peptides. They're literally on the cutting edge of all, in terms of medical weight loss, in terms of, peptides for muscle development, for basically every luxury need that you have. But then also, more importantly, for bodybuilders, they do offer discounted blood work, which is of the utmost importance to any bodybuilder, especially those who do not have insurance. So again, we do like to give them the pop. Dave, again, if fans mention Dave Palumbo or RX Muscle at checkout or any point of the conversation, they do get the royal hookup from Titan Medical.
Yeah. What I've realized lately, because a lot of people have been contacting me, is that the GLP-1 agonists are getting a lot harder to get all of a sudden. I think what's happening is the companies that make the drugs are clamping down on people, selling the generics and stuff like that, and the supply is dissipating. But I do know that Titan Medical Center still has, a good supply of the GLP-1s, all the different ones from the Ozempic up to the Mounjaro up to, retatrutide. So contact them. They have a great pricing on it. It's way cheaper than the pharmacies, and they have a great availability for it. So you contact them. And once again, don't forget to mention RX Muscle or Dave Palumbo to get that great discount.
Let's proceed to the rest of our questions, primarily from our YouTube community page. So if you go on the YouTube channel, click on post, that's where you'll see the image for Ask Dave, and that's where we source the vast majority of the questions for this show. Your opinion is a question that we have gotten periodically over the last few years. Your opinion on Hgh Fragment, is it really that great for fasted cardio and overall fat loss?
Toward the end of my career, that the Hgh Fragment came out, and what supposedly it is, theoretically, is it's the fragment of the GH molecule that burns fat, that supposedly mobilizes fat. I tried it. I didn't notice anything. I don't know if it's that effective. To me, the regular intact growth hormone works better at fat loss. So I don't know if maybe they captured some of it but they didn't really get the whole thing. I don't know what the deal is. Like I said, I like to tell people what the right thing to do is and what really is effective and what's not. I haven't noticed a lot of fat loss and people have used it or when I experimented with it at the end of my career. So, if you're going to ask me, is it as good as taking growth hormone at burning fat? No, it's not. Growth hormone's way better.
I had cancer and a tumor in my neck during which time I went from around 185 to 140. Barely ate during it and didn't train for 2 years. Deep depression, pain meds, etc. Was lifting, been lifting since I was a teen, got to 180 pounds naturally and then 210 with 2 basic test cycles over the years. During the whole cancer thing, I cold turkeyed my cruiser test and stopped training. I was so sick. I want to start training again. My question is, should I start test right away when I start training again to jumpstart my muscle memory? I have a strict surplus calories and training program. Is it? Yeah, so I guess he wants to get back on. He wants to know if taking tests right away to jumpstart his muscle memory.
Well, I think I would start just by diet and training first and see how your body responds. I think you're going to see a favorable response to your body. He didn't really indicate, I don't think, how old he was. So he might have a decent testosterone level. I would probably train 4 to 6 weeks first. See how you feel, see how you're doing. If you're not recovering well, or you feel like you're because what people don't realize is when you don't work out, you have a lot more energy, and you don't. And a lot of times, at least I noticed this, like when I went through some of my shoulder surgeries and stuff like that, and I couldn't work out. Like I didn't need as much sleep at night. I didn't need as much food. I seem to have more energy to do other things. That's the Donald Trump, right? That's his rationalization why he doesn't work out. He needs the energy to focus on doing his job. But once you start training, all of a sudden you start realizing, I need more food. I need more sleep. Maybe I need more testosterone too. But like I said, I would probably start, because he hasn't done anything, 4 to 6 weeks, and then evaluate, hey, if I'm not making any more progress, maybe I feel like I'm not recovering, then I can add my TRT in.
Question about donating while on cycle. Now, we have gotten questions about, should you donate while on cycle? Yeah. This question is it really possible to donate blood while on cycle?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no negative to it, I guess. I mean, as long as you rehydrate after you donate the blood. They always tell me, I always donate blood usually like once every 2 months. And if my hemoglobin hematocrit, red blood cells are a little high, I always just donate because I'm old. So, I never did it when I competed, but I do it now. And they always tell you, don't go to the gym after for 24 hours, hydrate, eat. They're making it seem like, I go right from the gym. I go right from the blood donation to the gym, and I have a great workout. It doesn't affect me. I don't feel lightheaded. I don't feel anything. I guzzle a bottle of water, and that's it. So it's not like a real, they act like, people like go home and they recover for 2 days from donating a pint of blood. It really, there's nothing. If you have a lot of extra blood, then there's really nothing that you're losing that you didn't really have before. So I don't think it's a big deal. You can donate on cycle if you want. If you're not that high, I wouldn't even, there's no need to, but if your, blood pressure is a little high and maybe, your red blood cells are really pushing the limit, I'm not just saying a little over, they're very high. You might want to donate if you feel better. Some people just tell me, they feel better when they donate, and that's okay. Other people don't, it doesn't matter to them. If you're young, it's irrelevant. I mean, if you're older, it might not be a bad idea if your RBCs are a little on the higher side. Just make sure, and you have to understand this, as a man, when you donate blood regularly, you're going to start losing iron. Your iron levels are going to go down in your body. And, we don't lose iron as men because we don't menstruate every month. We don't lose blood every month. But once you start dumping blood on a regular basis, because once you do it once, you're going to have to do it again in another 2 months probably, if you want to keep those levels lower, you're dumping iron too. So you might have to take an iron supplement. So make sure you get your ferritin and your iron levels checked to make sure you're not getting too low, because then you become anemic. You need iron to make hemoglobin, which is used to make red blood cells, because obviously the hemoglobin carries the oxygen in the red blood cells. So if you are iron deficient, that wouldn't be a good situation if you're on cycle and you're trying to maximize gains. So just keep an eye on your iron levels if you are going to donate.
What would be your ideal Hgh protocol for longevity and rejuvenation only?
what was the first word you said? My what?
Your GH ideal GH protocol for only
GH,
longevity.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 IUs a day, I think is adequate for men. 1 to 1.5 for women. That's a good dose. You're going to get some nice results from it. You're not going to get excessive fluid retention from it. You're not going to get like the pins and needles in your hands that a lot of the bodybuilders get from taking, 4 and upwards IUs. 2, I never ever felt any side effects from it, and I don't really see a lot of insulin resistance from 2 IUs, unless you have blood sugar control issues. I have a client who's got blood sugar control issues. He goes on 3 IUs of GH. His blood sugars are so high that you would think he was a type 1 diabetic. He goes off the GH, and they're still not great, but they're a lot better and more manageable with a long-acting insulin. So, assuming you don't have blood sugar issues, you should see 0 side effects on 2 IUs a day.
Is spirulina supplement beneficial for bodybuilders?
Is eating, lettuce and cucumbers and green peppers good for you? It's a green, I guess. I think that there is some antioxidant properties, some alkalinizing properties in the body to using it. Do I think you're going to notice much of a difference? Probably not. Probably a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a couple times a day, probably do the same thing. But can it hurt? No. I go through, there's certain supplements, I've told you this before. I take certain supplements every single day that are necessary for health. That's my multivitamin, multimineral, essential fatty acid supplement, and fiber. My V-mineralized, omega-lized, fiberlized. Those are the first 3 supplements I made. Those are necessary every day. Then there you have what we call the luxury items, like, a pre-workout, amino acids. You don't really need them, but they're going to enhance a little bit of what you're doing. Well, you have those like what I call luxury items for health too. And every once in a while, I'll kind of like cycle in like maybe a greens product, or I actually take a fruit and vegetable extract product too every day. But I'm saying I might add in like a spirulina, or I might add in a wheatgrass like powder type of thing. And I'll mix it into my fiber shake, my fiberlized shake, just for shits and giggles, like, maybe once every 6 months or so. I don't think it's a supplement that you need to take on a regular basis. There's no negative to it, but you probably won't notice any difference.
Could you talk about TRT and blood clots? Some studies suggest there is an increased risk due to the higher blood cell count, which thickens the blood and could also lead to a stroke. Other studies claim that there is no direct correlation. Could you help us sort through the confusion?
Yeah. First of all, there's nothing you can do to stop the hormones that you're taking, the testosterone, from increasing red blood cell count. Any anabolic steroids, any testosterone you take will tell the bone marrow to make more red blood cells. How much it does this is very individualistic. I know people that can take 50 milligrams of testosterone a week, which is very low, and still have high red blood cells from it. So the stuff does this. And anyone who tells you, I take this supplement to inhibit that from happening, because I have people contact me all the time and say, what supplements? I hear there's a supplement that will prevent that. Should I take this product? There's nothing that stops that, nor would you want to stop that. That is a healthy process, that when your testosterone level increases, your body wants more red blood cells so it can deliver more oxygen to the muscles that are going to be getting bigger from taking the testosterone, right? Because testosterone is a muscle building hormone. So that's a natural process that goes on in your body. That testosterone will increase those red blood cells. Now, the good thing is that testosterone doesn't increase platelet numbers. Platelets are the part of the blood that clot. So you don't have an increased clotting propensity. You have just more red blood cells, which deliver more oxygen. Now, it does make the blood a little thicker, but assuming that you're not walking around excessively dehydrated. And you know what the funny thing is? I always say, look at the cyclists or the marathon runners. These guys jack their red blood cells through the roof because they want more oxygen carrying capacity. And they're always dehydrated, these people. And you never, very, very, very infrequently do you hear about a marathon runner dropping dead of a clot in the middle of a race or something like that. So just because you have high red blood cells doesn't mean you have an increased propensity for strokes and stuff like that. Because if that was the case, the people who live at altitude, like in Denver, Colorado, who have an absolutely significantly higher amount of red blood cells because the oxygen is so low there because they're at altitude. Their bodies produce more red blood cells to compensate them for that. They don't get strokes. There's no like increased incidence of strokes in Mile High, Denver, or in any other of these cities that are at altitude. So you would have a lot of statistics to prove that if that was the case. Having said that, however, like I said, if you feel more comfortable donating blood to keep your levels at normal levels, there's nothing wrong with that. But just the idea of just having more red blood cells does not leave you at a higher risk for strokes or clots, except, and this is the important point, except if you already have an issue, a clotting issue. Some people clot too much. They produce too many platelets, or they have other issues that cause them to clot too much. In those situations, if you have that type, if you know that you have this, issue or a disease that does this, you absolutely don't want to have super high red blood cells because you already have a propensity to clot. Now you're thickening your blood, and that could make it worse. But in every other situation, which is 99% of the time, you don't have anything to worry about.
We talk about different cycles for different usages and then obviously for different age groups. What would be a good first cycle for somebody who's never done a cycle before and is over the age of 45?
Usually guys that are over 40 will do hormone replacement like testosterone. Okay. That's just because, their levels are low. They don't feel as good. Their energy's down. They don't have the sex drive. It's not as good as it was when they're younger. And they're going to go on replacement. And for most people, that is amazing. And it feels great. There's no toxicity to it. But if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to do a cycle, my testosterone level's pretty good, even at 45. I just want to do a cycle, and they've never done one. I would recommend taking something that has the minimal suppression effect on your natural testosterone levels. We know all cycles will suppress it a little bit, but like I said, my first cycle was like Primabol and Winstrol. You could do Anavar and Winstrol. Do something just that's easy, do some orals that are kind of weak, that have no side effects. They don't make you hold water or anything like that. You'll grow from anything you take. There's no reason to start bombing high testosterone levels and dealing with the side effects that come with that. When you can take some Winstrol, Primabol, Anavar, do a cycle of that for 12 weeks. See how you do. Make the best gains you can from the lowest strength anabolics, and when those stop working, then you can go up to Masteron and DECA and EQ and experiment with that and add in some testosterone. So I always say start with the weak stuff and get what you can out of it, because the side effects will be minimal. You'll look good. All your gains will be really solid. Most of the time you keep those gains too when you stop the stuff. And then you can experiment with the stronger stuff if after down the road you want to do that. But that's just, how I always viewed it. Like I said, for most men over 40, over 45, taking a shot of testosterone a week is going to give them everything they're looking for, and they don't need any more than that.
We've often talked about the role of fruits, vegetables, if they have a place in bodybuilding. Well, this question is specific to carbing up on fruits. He puts it as carbing up on fruits versus rice, and if there is a good combination. Have you ever used fruits in any sort of carbo protocol?
When you eat a lot of fruit, because there's a lot of fiber in fruit, and it's not necessarily the fiber that you want, it can make you gassy. It could upset your stomach. A lot of times guys start pooping too much and getting like diarrhea and stuff like that. It's not a good source of especially with the amount of carbs that we need to eat as bodybuilders. It's a disaster waiting to happen is really what it is. I don't know why people keep trying to recreate the wheel. We know it works. Simple starchy carbs get digested and absorbed the easiest. And everyone has a different preference. Like some person might like potatoes, some people like sweet potatoes, some people like cream of rice, some people like white rice. I like a mixture of everything, but it doesn't really matter. You find what works for you and you use it. Okay. And it's very predictable. If I take in this many grams of rice with this many carbs in it, I'm going to more than likely absorb 100% of it. If I'm eating fruit, I don't know, there's fiber there. I might be pooping out some of the carbs. I'm not eating it all. They're simple sugars. So, even though they don't spike insulin tremendously because they're fructose, it's not the best source of carbs to put into your body. Your body has to convert it to glucose, and then that raises, insulin. So I never saw good results with carbing on fruits. The time of my career that I always felt like I wanted the most fruits was right after a show, because I was so dehydrated. I was craving like fruit for some reason. And I would always eat like a big fruit platter, like after I competed, and then I would be doubled over in pain until I pooped the first time, because there's, like I said, there's a huge fiber content in the fruit. So I don't recommend, like I said, don't do kooky things. It's funny. I was watching Trump today. They were interviewing him about Iran, and he said, they're kooks. They're cuckoo, and don't do kooky stuff. The last week of a show to carb up. Stick with what works. We all do the same thing. You know why? Because that's what works.
Take one more question. This one is about sickle cell. Can someone that has, male or female, with sickle cell be a bodybuilder or even live the fitness lifestyle that is including the diet, the exercise, and I guess taking it a step further, the anabolic cycles?
Yeah, it's funny. There are athletes that, I read a lot of blood work. People send me their blood work all the time. I as a service to the industry, I look at and read blood work. I don't charge people unless the blood work is really screwy, and then I have to go over with them how to fix the problems, and then I usually we'll do a phone consult or something like that. But sometimes I see blood work, and I'm like, your red blood cells are kind of weird, and they're different. They're not all uniform. And I said, you look like you're a little anemic, and they're like, oh yeah, I have sickle cell. So there are bodybuilders. I think Robbie Robinson told me he has sickle cell, and so you can absolutely be a successful bodybuilder. The good thing about bodybuilding is it's not really an aerobic sport, so you're not going to notice it as much. I think when you're dieting and you're really pushing your body hard with a lot of cardio, it might be a little harder for you. But I think a lot of guys with sickle cell, or they have the sickle trait where it's not 100% sickle cell, it's a little harder, but they get used to it and they don't even realize that they have it after a while. Plus, don't forget, bodybuilders produce excessive amounts of red blood cells, especially guys on gear. So that kind of super compensates, for maybe the lack of what sickle cell basically is. Instead of the red blood cell looking like a biconcave disc, it kind of has it looks like a sickle, if you know what that is. It's kind of misshapen. So it doesn't carry, the hemoglobin in there doesn't carry oxygen as efficiently as a normal cell would. So you're not getting the maximum bang for your buck. But if you have extra cells available because you're on anabolics and it's causing the bone marrow to produce extra red blood cells, that a lot of time compensates for it. So yeah, there's no reason why, even with the sickle cell trait, you can't be a great bodybuilder.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, right now on the channel, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio and the After Hours podcast. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss this or any other shows that we have on the channel. If you're not already following us on Instagram, official_RX Muscle. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Hgh Fragment. We'll see you next time.